Hello, 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 everybody. Say hello, Nightbringer.
Hello.
I thought you were just going to stay silent then.
You know, I debated
That's going to be an awkward episode. Trust me, Knight is here. He's just not talking for some reason.
Have you ever had to deal with you?
I mean, I've had to deal with me.
Okay.
How you doing?
Doing all right.
Doing all right. Managed to survive Christmas. Yeah.
Exactly.
We're in that awkward, it's not quite New Year stretch. Everything just feels kind of fake. If that makes any sense.
Yes, but things have also... our world is an interesting world.
Oh, good God, yeah. A lot of shit is happening, but that's not what this podcast is about. This podcast is about watching episodes of Murder, She Wrote.
And discussing communism.
No. I'm just gonna start by saying thank goodness for this episode.
I wasn't as... Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I wasn't fully, running my brain at 100% for watching this episode, but I still felt wasn't quite there. That it was much closer than last week, but definitely coming up to me, still short.
To me, this is what a pinnacle Murder She Wrote episode should be. Right. So coming off last week's, it was going to be very hard for it to be worse. I think we both agree.
Oh God, yes.
Right. I am so glad they came back with this one the week after. Because one, Jessica Fletcher felt like Jessica Fletcher again. Which was a really... Although I feel her screen time is getting less and less each episode.
Yeah, that was also peculiar.
But she did seem Jessica Fletcher whenever she was doing it. And the case itself was so ridiculous that I loved it.
Again, I'm going to write off some of that because my brain wasn't running at 100%, but are you saying the case was so bad it's good? Because I just thought it was bad.
Okay, I think it depends on where you're coming from with the case. I thought that... Okay, let's go into the episode. So it's called A Dog's Life.
Oh, yes.
And it kicks off... again, you have to explain why Jessica Fletcher is there. Her cousin is the horse trainer for rich people, and they're all together to go on a fox hunt.
And for some reason, we also begin with Jessica Fletcher flirting with a single old man.
Yes, well, the old man was flirting with her, I feel, in that instance. I've forgotten the line, but I loved it when he delivered it. A pair of fine whippets. No, those are dogs.
Oh, withers. Look at the withers on that horse, the muscles. And my point there is less she hasn't been the super flirty one in any of the instances, but it's always just her and some old horny guy.
It is very odd how they do that. But okay, so her cousin is the trainer and she just happens to be there on a holiday.
And why is her cousin 20 years younger than her?
Well, why not?
No.
I've got cousins who are 20 years younger than me. Why not?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Right? Why not?
For close cousins, who know each other well, as at least alluded to in the episode, I think their age difference was... Because my mother is one of 8 children, and her oldest sister is 18 years older. So I do have cousins that are definitely quite a bit older than I am. But when you have that big of a gap, things can be a little peculiar.
I mean, I find the whole extended family thing odd anyway, because even though I know I do have cousins with the same kind of age gap, I know none of my cousins.
Exactly.
But the Fletcher family and whatever the cousin surname was, clearly quite a close family, at least close enough for Jessica Fletcher to feel she can bum a room in a nice mansion, well, cottage attached to a mansion for a couple of days.
Well, and enough that the cousin almost demanded she stay.
Well, Jessica Fletcher asked, and yeah, she's very much appreciative, which I think makes a lot of sense. She's in the situation where she is being accused, because again, it's always a Fletcher family member who seems to be accused, at least at some point. But go back to the beginning. So they're trying to set up. So they're setting up this old man, Denton, I think his name was.
Mm-hmm.
Who is played by the old man from RoboCop, who runs Omnicorp. That's the first thing that came to me while watching this episode. That's the old man from RoboCop. And I couldn't tell if they were trying to set him up as a nice guy or not. At this stage, they're definitely trying to set up his kids as horrible money leeches, right, and all with their own particular problems. The son, whose name I have completely forgotten, but yeah, there's the son, Spencer.
Yes,
I think the son maybe
called
Spencer.
Absolutely.
So there's the son who's kind of being set up as the most reasonable one at this stage. And he is arguing with his two sisters, one who is a complete lush and the other who is into spiritual, can see dead people type nonsense. Right. And then there's also the niece who I think is just meant to be set up as a bit of an airhead, but honestly, I didn't really get what they were trying to go for with the niece whatsoever. At this stage. Again, I feel like that's kind of a character who could have largely been ignored. And, well, was ignored. Probably didn't need to be included. But yeah, they're clearly trying to set up, and they've already done a scene right at the start, actually, before the horse stuff begins, where one of the horses is being fed some kind of tablet.
Yes, they do open the whole episode with here's not the killer, but here's a person doing something to the horse.
Well, it was interesting because it was a clearly feminine hand.
Yes.
Right. So you're clearly at this stage meant to think, okay, so we know at least part of the mystery a woman is responsible for. We don't know what that pill has done to the horse at this stage. We just know a horse has been given a pill. So they then do this kind of a lot of drinking before they go fox hunting. There's the flirty with Jessica Fletcher as they explain why she's there. And then off they go on the hunt. We find out that the horse that's been drugged is Denton's horse, the father's horse. He goes off riding. The horse goes out of control. They jump over a very small hedge. He falls off and he dies. Right? Denton down.
Yes.
Police obviously wrap it up as just an accident, which honestly, fair enough, given the evidence that they had access to. And
okay, so this is where I had issues with JB Fletcher in this episode. 1 second.
Yep. This is dead air.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Had a frog in my throat. So the horse obviously gets spooked or reacts to whatever it was. Because I honestly thought it was going to be poison initially.
I don't think the horse even got spooked. The horse just suddenly seemed to want to rush off.
Exactly. The showing of the horse going from normal to psychotic doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless there is a spook. And with that many other dogs around, horses are a bit skittish, but so the horse jumps over the hedge, Denton falls off and dies. The police come to investigate, and they what was it? animal control is there as well, trying to get the horse. The horse is
it's just the local
run
vet.
for another. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. The horse is going to be out for 2 or 3 hours before he gets home because he's lost his mind and is just running. Except this is a whole old slow horse for Denton because Denton's and Jessica Fletcher asks if the horse could be on something, and asks if that thing it's on could be detected hours later if it got through her system. And then later, obviously we know that the horse was drugged, but later the evidence that the vet finds is that the horse wasn't drugged. And Jessica Fletcher sticks to the concept of, well, that's the science, that's what the test shows.
No, so point of correction, she is not aware of, she's not aware of the drugs. So she asks if you can test the horse, right? Which I think is a fair enough question. Can you test the horse? Because my cousin thinks something is off. The other old man, like the friend of Denton, thinks something is off. It all looked a little bit suspicious. Can you check the horse to see if he's on something, basically? The excuse is then given as, well, yeah, the horse will turn back in, come back in a few hours and we'll test it then. Obviously, when they test it, there's nothing in the horse's system.
No, she actually asks, is there anything that could wear off by the time you actually get to test the horse? She explicitly
I don't think she asked that, because I think it's the cousin who brings up the concept of there might be something, there are drugs that wear out. I don't think Jessica Fletcher is aware of that at all. And I don't remember her asking that. I remember her asking to test the horse, but I don't remember her saying the can it wear off thing at that point. Because the cousin brings it up later, which is because that's when Jessica Fletcher goes, well, science is science. Obviously nothing wrong with the horse. And it's the cousin who then says, but there are things that could have gone through a system in that time.
Okay, I have to scrub through the episode. I swear I'm right on this one.
You may be.
Okay. The horse got carried away with the excitement. Fletcher carried. Horses in the next county running. Test run on the horse. Because the whole group of them think the horse went wild. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm wrong. I swear.
No, it wasn't Jessica Fletcher, and it makes sense.
Okay,
Jessica Fletcher has no, and it wouldn't make sense for the cousin to then bring it up afterwards. So, and it kind of gives a reason for Jessica Fletcher to say, well, that's the science. We can't argue against it. And she is quite right at that stage. That is the science, and they cannot argue against it.
I still think she came up short as a investigator, as a nosy busybody. She would know that they're all false positive and false negatives. Anyone who's paid attention to any tests for any length of time and cares about the results knows that.
Yes.
In addition, she would also have taken into account the concept that that the poison or whatever it was could wear off in a few hours and no longer be tested for, because that's another thing.
I don't think Jessica Fletcher would have made that leap to a horse. She would have made that leap to a human, but she would not have made that leap to a horse. And I think it's fair enough to say that she wouldn't have made that leap because she has no idea what a horse poison is, or what would have been used.
It is explicitly the cousin who does mention that to her in regards to the results of the test.
Yes, after Jessica Fletcher has given up on the idea of the science. It's the cousin who says that then brings Jessica Fletcher back on board.
Okay.
Right, and you could argue she's asking the cousin, okay, that's the science, there's nothing we can do to argue about it, in a way that she's asking the cousin, is there something I should be looking at?
Right, okay.
Or you could argue in your respect that she did seem a little bit non-interested. But to be honest, I don't think she was interested at this stage. She was like, well, if the horse was on something, you've got yourself a story, right? If the horse isn't on something, well, it's probably just an accident. And I think she would have gone along with that. If the cousin had not been so determined that something was amiss. And if the cousin hadn't had some kind of weird connection to Denton.
Right.
You know, because it wasn't just a professional relationship they had. They clearly had some kind of flirty maybe, I think Denton even says if I was 30 years younger at some point.
Yeah.
But I honestly think, yeah, at that point, if it had just been Jessica Fletcher without the cousin there, I think she would have gone home and never thought about this again. That was my take on it. And it was the cousin saying, well, there are things that could have gone wrong. You know, there's so many things wrong with the horse that clearly something is amiss here. I think is what keeps her brain, Jessica Fletcher's brain, going. That's the way I took it anyway. And I didn't... I take your point. I do believe that Jessica Fletcher, in reality, would be able to take her knowledge of human poisons and apply a basic premise to an animal and say, well, yeah, we know there's a lot of drugs that just go out of people's systems in a matter of hours. Like, I do think there's a little bit of vapidness there.
And that that mentions that the horse is going to be another county over by now.
Yeah.
No horse, an old horse like that, I to my knowledge, wouldn't spook and run that far without some sort of drug. They do run home.
Yes, but that's again that's the horse, that's the cousin's logic, right? Is this is not a spooked horse. This is a horse. Something else has happened to this horse. Jessica Fletcher is meant to be like the majority of the people sitting on their sofa. They've probably never seen a horse in real life, right? So would a horse spook like that? I don't know. You tell me. And I think that's kind of
way too much about animals.
I think this is the problem. You've probably been around animals. I've been around horses, but that's the problem. That the cousin is the viewer's horse expert. So it makes more sense for her to be asking these questions than it does for Jessica Fletcher to be asking these questions. Because almost in a way, and in a way that they've never done before, Jessica Fletcher is almost playing the part of the viewer at that point.
And giving we don't have a baseline for what our audience knows, not only about poison, but also about horses.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So, and I think, honestly, if this had come after any other episode, I would have ripped this apart the same that you did, right? But coming off the episode we just had, this felt like gold.
Much better.
Just because
I still want better more, but
so do I.
I'll take this all day compared to that.
And I definitely want the cases to flow a lot better, because this case does not flow very well to the final conclusion, but it's a much better episode and a much better case, like all kind of tied into one. So they then do the will reading, because again we're meant to believe that. Because again, I think they've had that conversation about the horse before the will reading.
Yes.
It may have been after. I honestly don't know. But we're then, we're given to believe that the motive for any kind of murder of the old man is going to have to be money. And then the lawyer comes in. Now, I recognize the lawyer as well. I think he may have been in a Herbie film, but I'm not entirely sure.
The estate attorney?
Yeah.
Oh, I recognize him from where God knows.
Yeah, what was he? Marcus Boswell?
Yes, Boswell. His name is Dean Jones.
Yes, he was the doctor in Beethoven for a much later film. The one who tries to steal Beethoven for whatever reason. I can't remember the plot line of Beethoven. But yes, he was in The Love Bug. And things like that as well. But anyway, that is completely superfluous what we're talking about. So they bring in the lawyer, and he's basically, it's the reading of the will. He turns up late. There's some more interaction with the family, which is trying to set something up. But honestly, I've forgotten what is happening. I think the Lush is drinking again. Kooky sister is being kooky, and Spencer is trying to hold them all together to look a little bit more respectable.
And isn't the odd niece the Cookie sister's child?
Yes.
Yeah, she's also there and also playing the I'm peculiar, look at me.
Yes, which I didn't understand. And I think and the friend is there because he gets a shotgun. But turns out it's a video will, which I thought was kind of funny and probably kind of novel for when they did this episode.
Yes.
And I like that. And this is when the old man, because I feel they were trying to set up the old man as a likable character in our first introduction to him. But in the will, he comes across as an asshole.
Yeah, but he comes across as an asshole to people who the show's already put a lot of work
into
showing that they're the actual assholes and they're just out for his money.
Yes, but I actually started to feel a lot of sympathy for them because this is their dad. And if that's how he treats his kids, of course they've turned out fucked up. Of course they have. Right?
Things get weird when large amounts of money get involved.
I'm not even talking about the money. I'm just talking about the interaction between the father and kids. So,
that's why I'm talking about money.
I think money's got a lot to do with it, and the money has allowed the kids to, spiral off and be able to survive and not, be spoiled and not have to. We have no idea what the mother was like. Although apparently, I think she was like the drunk one. I think, who's going on after affairs. But mother's obviously long gone. But no, I started to feel a little bit more sympathy for the family. With the will, because the things he said, he was just being an asshole for being an asshole's sake, and kind of reveling in the fact that I know I'm dead, but I'm going to delay the news that you want because I know all you want to know is who have I left the money to, but let me get a few parting barbs in.
Oh yeah, that part was,
and then
unnecessarily dickish.
Yes, and then obviously gives the staff bonuses, gives the shotgun to his friend. Mentions a moderate trust. We're never told how much that trust for the family is. But we know the majority of his 3 million in paintings is going to some museum somewhere.
Yeah, and that just feels like an excuse to keep the security guard around.
And then the rest of the 15 million goes to his dog. I have forgotten the name of the dog. It did
Barky.
have a name. It was not called Barky Barkington. But yes. So, and again, I would imagine this was fairly novel for the time. A lot of money going to a pet rather than the family. The family then kind of give up all kind of pretense that they're feeling sad.
Or
civil, and are straight to the lawyer saying we're going to contest this. This is when it starts to kind of fall apart for me in the fact that the lawyer then says, I put in a clause, if you contest this, you lose everything.
Yeah, that screamed illegal to me too.
Right. That to me screamed, well, why did he do that? And the other thing that seemed odd to me at the time, and it turned out it was on purpose, is that the drunken sister says something along the lines of "you skis," right, to the lawyer. And it didn't make any sense to me. It was like I understood she was angry, but the rest are basically angry at the dad and the will that they've come up with. None of them were angry at the lawyer himself, apart from the drunken sister. And that stood out to me. And I was like, okay, they're trying to tell me something here.
I did not catch that.
And I was like, so we've got to keep our eye on her. Is what I got from that. I believe they do then technically arrest. No, hang on. The dog hasn't done anything wrong at this stage. So then they then kind of plant the idea that, okay, because I think it's said that if the dog dies in anything but an unnatural way, all the money goes to the animal shelter.
Yes. The dog needs to die of natural causes is how they explicitly put it.
So then we go to the next day. Obviously, I believe the dog is drugged.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get this particular sequence of events. Like, I don't think it made a lot of sense to me. So, well, it made sense, but kind of the resolution didn't make any sense to me. So the dog is drugged in something that's clearly meant to hop it up, right? Is then Spencer then pretends the dog has attacked him and his horse. Right.
And then there's actually no harm on Spencer or his horse.
Yeah.
So
and then the
Teddy
cousin
didn't do
goes
anything
in
wrong.
and just shouts, "Sit," and then it's over. So I don't really understand what the dog was meant to have been on. That basically all you had to do was say "sit" to the dog, and then it was over. It didn't make sense to me. Right? I understand Spencer and the horse's reaction, sure, and Spencer's because he's trying to set the dog up, which is revealed later on. But I didn't understand, well, if all you had to do was say "sit" to the dog to calm it down, couldn't Spencer have done that? Like, I don't really understand how this went out of proportion. The vet comes out, confirms that the dog has been giving something. Jessica Fletcher is then starting to make the link between could this have been given to the horse or something like this been given to the horse. The vet says no, but...
And the vet says no, only for one reason. The test came back negative. He doesn't even clarify that theoretically, yes.
No, but, so the vet says no, but it starts to plant the seed that, okay, something is dodgy. Something dodgy is going on here. Why has someone drugged the dog, planted blood on it, which has got nothing to do with Spencer and the horse, and then up rolls whoever the hell he is. I honestly can't even remember his name. Potts? Was he Farmer Potts?
Last name Potts.
Up rolls Potts. He's got a bandage / cast on his arm already and says that's the dog who attacked me. So I don't know when the dog was meant to have gone down to the Potts farm, attacked him, come back, and then attacked Spencer and the horse. And I don't know who's been looking after the dog. Like, doing that, has the dog just been allowed to wander freely with no one looking after it? But anyway, that sequence, as explained in the show, did not make a lot of sense to me. I understood the point story-wise, because obviously, if the dog is arrested and put down, I'm assuming they would then argue that that's natural causes, and then the money must go to the family. Although I don't know what is in the will. It's never really explained in the will what happens when the dog dies, whether it reverts to the family or if it just goes to an animal shelter anyway. But they clearly thought that wasn't important.
It's implied, at least, that the money is available if the dog lives its natural life. And I would say that while the dog being put down wouldn't count as natural causes, that could easily be argued in court, comparatively speaking, to the dog dying under mysterious circumstances.
100%.
But of course, that still would lead an investigation as to why the dog went loco and bit someone.
Yes, and of course, the fact that the vet said the dog has been drugged would then, would unravel that whole plot anyway. But then the plot was revealed to be a stupid idea anyway, so I guess it kind of makes sense. But again, it just... Jessica Fletcher's alarm bells are starting to go off even more at this stage. So now I think the dog is arrested. The lawyer does some work and gets the dog released to the cousin. Do we then jump straight into Jessica Fletcher and the cousin going to see the lawyer?
I think so.
So they're off to, they go and see the lawyer. Another lawyer comes out saying there's a loophole that he can drive a submarine through or something. Something to that effect. And then out comes the Dottie sister as well, indicating that lawyer is acting on behalf of her. The lawyer then explains it's actually on behalf of the entire family. But gives us the idea that the family are still fighting this and are trying to do everything they can to get their money back. Or their dad's money, I guess, rather than saying their money back.
They want the dog out of the picture and the 15 million split.
Yeah, they just want the 15 million, yeah. And then we are also introduced by the secretary to this weird idea that the lawyer's broker is after him and has been for some time.
Yes.
Right, which was such a weird throwaway line.
Well, immediately into their... So she gives that statement because it's the third time that day that he's called, or was it the third time this week?
I don't know, but anyway, it was he's been calling, he's been chasing.
I think that actually does set up well for them to then, or for him to then get the phone call while he's meeting with them on no, it doesn't matter that you can claim you're not busy. I'm your
Yes.
broker. Talk to me now.
So
the second time that day makes sense.
I found it, well, no, because I don't think the secretary would have ever put that call through when there was a client in the room. Any secretary worth their salt would not have done that ever. But that's beside the point. What I found odd is that with the, saying your broker is chasing you, you already on the idea that, okay, this guy's got money problems.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If the broker is chasing you, he's clearly after money. You're trying to duck him because clearly you don't have the money, so you must have money problems. So I found it odd that the call then went through, because again, I don't think any legal secretary worth their salt would have put that through.
So I can imagine her reaching out and saying, he demands to talk to you now, and then with them already knowing it's the broker, then him stepping out and having to take the call. Or something to that line of, if there's an insistence, if he's far enough behind in money and it's just the lawyer and his secretary.
You would imagine the secretary doesn't know that he's behind in money. He's just being chased by a broker. Now, it may have got to the point that she's been pissed off of having to fob him off, but I don't think you would. I mean, okay, maybe the cousin and Jessica Fletcher weren't seen as clients, but he did have people in his office. And I don't think you would have passed that phone call through, personally. But they did it for the throwaway line to throw Spencer back in the spotlight. Which is,
oh yeah,
this stock that I'm clearly having to send more money into, Spencer got me into it, and he's got even more of it. So therefore, he's even more in money trouble, right? But again, it's the clunkiness of some of this delivery, and I also don't believe the lawyer would have said that to Jessica Fletcher and the cousin.
No,
honestly. Right, I don't believe he would have said that. But you've got to get the information out somewhere. And I kind of said it, but no, it all seemed a little bit clunky to me. Honestly, I think if you wanted that information to come out, it would have made more sense for the broker to have been in the office and possibly knock the doors down, because then it's not the secretary doing something stupid. It's the broker. He wants his money and he doesn't give a shit.
Right? That would have definitely worked better.
That could have worked better, but just again, these people are out in wherever they're out. I don't actually know what part of the United States they were in, to be honest. But clearly quite a rural area, with what I'm assuming was one big mansion of the Daytons and then properly used farmland around them. Is the impression I got.
The friend,
yes,
he had 600 acres.
600.
So he's definitely not as rich as Dutton, and he might do actual farming, but 600 acres is not that's quite a bit of land. He's at least comfortable. He may be more of a farmer, but he's definitely financially comfortable.
Yes. So then we then go back.
And it's quite clear Potts isn't supposed to be someone with money, so it is a interesting neck of the woods.
Yes. Potts is definitely just your average farmer. So yeah, after the lawyer office, I'm trying to think where it jumps to. We have missed the call where she calls Cabot Cove to tell Ethan she's not going to be back for a while because she thinks it is murder.
That also felt like throwaway and unnecessary communication to the audience. We already knew that she's here.
And then, I forget. I forget the actual cut.
Well, is it not then almost immediate that they come back with the dog, and then we move into the scene why the security guard's still on the premises?
So is it straight to the dog going to the security guard? Is that basically what happens?
I think so.
Okay. So and this was weird. This was weird, but again, it was setting up quite nicely, but it all felt a little bit just kind of weird and clunky. So the dog turns up at the guard's office, The guard is meant to be guarding the oil paintings. I can't see that there was a single camera pointed towards the oil paintings. So I don't know how he isn't just a normal security guard who's running the gate.
I think he was just the guard for the property, and he was to stay on until the paintings were gone to assure no foul play with the paintings.
Maybe.
Would be my assumption.
Maybe. But yeah, so, they've got quite a security system. They've got a gate that he can open from down the line. We're introduced to the gate when they first go out for the hunt and how it works. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the dog turns up and he does the weird line, "Oh, you're here at this time every day." Right? Which kind of felt a little bit odd. Also felt a little bit odd that the security guard would let the dog in, but then I also understand that if you're bored doing security guard stuff and the dog comes in, you're probably going to pet it.
Right. Well, I mean, he sits there mostly watching cameras. He's kind of part of the family.
Yes.
You're going to interact with the dog when you can, because why not?
I understand that. And then, so we then get to the drunken sister is driving her car towards the gate, swerving all over the place, clearly drunk. We're seeing this through the monitor in the security room. She gets out to press the intercom buzzer to say open the gate, but then just falls over. Right? Does she hit the intercom? She doesn't say anything. The intercom.
She doesn't say anything. She stumbles around like she's drunk.
Yep.
The guard obviously doesn't care that she didn't say anything because it's just her. She's shit-faced.
It's her car. It looks like her. She's wandering around like her. Yeah.
So he's hit the open gate.
Yeah.
And then she stumbles and falls in a perfect position.
Yes. Oh, that's right, because the gate is opening. So she then stumbles, and the guard gets a little bit worried. Is like, I better go and check this out. Make sure she gets home safe. Leaves the dog in the room, which was really odd to me. I don't know why you would have left the dog in the security room by himself. Stupid decision. Right? It's not your dog. If you're leaving your security station with a door that locks by itself, I'm sorry, you're not leaving the dog in there. You're going to take the dog in your arms and you're going to throw it out to the hallway as you leave. You're not going to leave it there.
He doesn't think anything is out of the ordinary, though. The dog is a member of the family. The dog comes regularly to his office.
There's nothing out of the ordinary. And you're just walking out to pick somebody up. Why not take the dog out with you? There are so many reasons. There are so many reasons not to leave the dog in there. One of which is he may accidentally press a button.
And see,
which should have been a concern. He could have also been, the dog may chew on something. The dog may pee on something and break all of this expensive equipment. There are many reasons not to leave that dog in that room.
He knows,
but there's only one to leave it in that
family.
Room. It's called plot convenience.
I disagree.
But again, I would never leave a dog locked in any room in the house. If I'm leaving the room and I know I have to have the door closed for heat or whatever, the dog is going to come out with me.
I'll say that the main reason he should have either thrown the dog out or taken the dog with him is because he just saw a shit-faced woman pass out in the middle of the driveway, and he has no idea how long he's going to be out of the office.
Yes,
if he thought it was just a 10-minute errand to go take care of something, I can see leaving the dog in there because you want the dog in there when you come back because you want more pets. I
think you take the dog with you. Probably just follow you around.
Or that.
Right? But anyway, the dog is left in there for the very obvious... because the dog has to press the button. So the guard's going down to the gate, and then what is also weird to me. So again, how the case is then explained at the end does not actually flow with how the case is presented to us. Right. So guard goes around the corner. She's lying with her head perfectly placed in a way that if the gate closes, it's going to crush her head. Right. And then as he's walking, the gate starts to close. Right? So he comes around the corner before the gate closes, and it starts to close as he's watching it.
Exactly.
Right? And then he doesn't pick up any kind of pace to try and knock her out of the way. There's clearly no safety devices on the gate, which you would expect nowadays, but this is the 80s. So again,
really,
you have to consider
you
that.
You don't think there would have been a pressure-related sensor that if it, don't try and just. I would expect some sort of sensor of if you
not in the 80s
experience resistance. Really? Okay.
No, not in the 80s.
It would have just been mechanical.
Not until after this had happened, and then this is the incident that started people putting sensors on.
Are you talking about in the U.S. we had a bar installed at the back of all of our lorries, tractor trailer rigs, what have you, after one celebrity ran into it, or ran into the back of a truck and died.
That kind of thing. But no, like just the culture in America, right? The person who had the McDonald's coffee when it was hot and burnt themselves and successfully sued. So you have to have that little warning on your cup to say, hot coffee may be hot.
You know in that story that she's, in the suing for the hot coffee, that she's actually in the right?
Well, why?
Okay, so all she initially wanted was enough from the claim from McDonald's to take care of her medical bill.
I don't care about the claim. Why was she right to claim in the first place?
Because McDonald's had a history of overheating its coffee to try and dissuade people from drinking it while they were in the building. They had already had issues of corporate-wide keeping the coffee too hot and it burning people. She had, I want to say, third-degree burns all over her lap and required extensive surgery to fix it because they explicitly kept the coffee at a dangerous temperature, even though they knew it kept causing injuries.
Coffee is hot.
Coffee is not hot enough to burn you when served to a customer.
And again, putting a warning saying coffee is hot if you're still serving it that hot doesn't fix the problem anyway.
Well, and that's part of why the actual end result was. So that's what McDonald's tried to do, is say, oh, well, she was just off her rocker. That way, fine, we'll put the warning on there saying coffee's hot, be aware it's hot. But what they actually did was also reduce the temperature. They genuinely actually had to bring the temperature down, as it was a safety issue.
But oh dear, but no, coffee is hot. It's stupid. But anyway, only in America. But anyway,
America's actually not any more litigious or lawsuit prone than any other country. If you actually look at the evidence on that,
that is nonsense.
It gets publicized.
No. America went lawsuit happy, and then everybody else followed suit because you realized it would work.
Okay, that would be. At this point, we are no more litigious than any other country.
Oh, at this point, no.
It's a fair point.
No. At this point, no. But yes, like if a British person had burnt them, well, we had the NHS, so you don't have to worry about the medical bill side of things anyway. But like, if you'd spilled coffee on yourself and burnt yourself, you would have said that was my fault. Unless the cup was defective, you wouldn't have even thought about suing anybody about it.
I do think the lid also might have had some issues.
Well, I mean, that's different. Like, if the cup is defective, then that's different. But it's But anyway, that's not what this is about. But yes, I wouldn't have expected there to be safety on the gate. What I am kind of surprised by is that it would have closed with such speed and mechanical force that it would actually cause instant death.
Yeah,
to somebody. I cannot imagine that the motors on that gate were that strong.
Right? So I did think about that, and that is a big, heavy metal gate. So the motors would have to be quite strong, but I can't imagine it being quick enough. Like, I can imagine it potentially killing someone if it sits there for 5 minutes, just cranking tighter and tighter and tighter.
Yes,
he's
exactly.
Right there.
But he's right there, and I feel like, and again, you have to assume that the only way to open and close a gate is in the office,
right?
And there is no safety override down by the gate, because again, you would have thought he would have just rushed to the gate and done some kind of safety override. But yes, I would imagine this is the case that led to gates like this having to have emergency override buttons, and sensors. So if it starts to hit something, it stops closing. But it is a novel way to kill someone. I will say that. crushed by Gate.
I didn't like it.
But, so what I don't like about this, and I'm going to go right to the end and spoil it, Jessica Fletcher basically becomes, it's a coroner's inquest rather than a legal proceeding. But she basically becomes a lawyer to unravel the case and prove who did it, right? At the end. And the sequence of events is the Dottie sister says she saw her sister's ghost rise from her body. Right?
Right.
Which is the lawyer.
There is a thing, though, that actually makes the Dottie sister credible and believable. She does actually mention, it's the first, or she does mention something, first time I really see a ghost and no one believes me.
Yes, yeah, like first ghost. But I did not disbelieve her. I disbelieved it was a ghost, but I did not disbelieve that she saw her sister get up.
Something.
Right? Because clearly something was amiss about this whole thing. So the fact that the sister saw somebody stand up, who is the, spoiler alert, the lawyer did it, who is the lawyer dressed in her fur coat. That is revealed by the fact that the fur coat seems to have been ripped apart because he obviously hulked his way into it.
Was this before the point? Because essentially what they're trying to imply with the seams burst is this is a expensive and therefore high quality coat, better than what any commoner could have.
Oh no! We knew it was her coat. The point they were trying to make with the seams being burst is that why were the seams burst? You're meant to believe that someone has worn this who is too big and has broken it while putting it on.
To me, it also is trying, to me at least, to imply that this is an expensive coat, therefore it's hard to damage, therefore the seams being burst is super significant. To me, at least things currently seem to be, things are expensive because they expect rich people to buy it and it breaks very quickly. That there is a lot of nice, quote-unquote, fashion that has absolutely horrible workmanship.
Yes, but the main point is that if she was wearing the jacket, there was no reason for it to be broken.
So I'm assuming this is before that point in our society where everything did get that shite for rich people stuff.
No, I think even in this time, like even if you buy something that's cheap, it's very rare after, unless it's like a few repetitive uses, that the seams would just suddenly break. I can't remember if they said it was a new jacket or not. I don't know about that. But no, yeah, you're meant to assume it's good quality, and you're meant to assume that the seams being broken are out of the ordinary. Yes,
and I
maybe not significant.
I just disagreed with whether or not.
Out of the ordinary. Well, the only reason seams break like that is if you've hulked out in it. So the clue was there for you to pick up on is that okay, the seams are broken, so probably someone bigger than the sister was wearing that coat. And probably was putting it on with such a rush, which is why they kind of hulked out. Because again, it was the seams, they said. Like, seams bursting is because you put too much pressure on the seams. Like, it wasn't like a ripped sleeve or a ripped pocket or something like that. It was specifically the seams bursting. And to me, that was they were saying someone else was wearing this coat who was bigger than the sister. Which makes sense. Whereas, it being ripped wouldn't have made any kind of significance because she's fallen over. Anyway, which would explain a rip. So no, I think the seams was an important clue they were trying to dish out there. But then so the sister then says she sees a ghost rise amid the sound of a bird. Right?
Does she say bird? I remember she said that there was a sound that was loud. I thought she said scream, but anything in that situation could be taken for anything because she just saw her sister dead and then rise up. Any sound she hears that's loud is going to be...
It was definitely the sound of a bird because that's how Jessica Fletcher puts the guard story together with the sister's story to come up with the fact that someone else was the first person the guard saw laying down and how the dog was trained. Right? So
So is your issue that the gate started closing while the guard's there, which would mean that, and in the end, we're told that the sound of the bird whistle, is, so essentially the guard would have seen him standing there at the intercom to get the gate to start closing.
Yes, the timing is off. So the time, basically, the gate would have started closing before, according to the sister, before he'd even put the sister's body in place. Unless you're trying to argue that the sister saw what was clearly a man no longer in the furred coat.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Right.
I follow.
Because he's already put the body down, and therefore, if he's already put the body down, he must have taken the fur coat off and put it back on the body. Wait, where was the coat? Was it just in the back of the car?
Or was she meant to be wearing
it? It has to be on her because the guard saw him wearing it. So it has to be on the body, or else, the whole story falls apart. Okay, so it has to be on her. I can understand. So I think, so maybe what you're trying to say there then is that the sister does actually see the body on the ground and somebody else rise up, which is the man. Right? But given the view that the sister had, and if she's seen both of those things, and again, he's no longer in the fur coat, why does she believe that's the sister who's got up?
You're assuming that the Dottie sister would have actually seen both the person fall down and the person get back up, and then a new person sat there.
Well, this either happened at two particular stages, right? So it's either the man has fallen over, has waited the appropriate amount of time to know that the guard is going to leave to come out and check, which is a big wild card swing, by the way.
Right.
To then stand up and so he, for this to work in any way, he must have already stood up, got the body out, put the body on the floor, put the fur coat. Well, it's not a body at this stage; she's still alive. Put the unconscious sister on the floor, put the fur coat back on, and then as he is standing up at that stage, that must be when he does the bird whistle. Because again, we are told that she saw the ghost stand up with the sound. So you have to imagine this at the same time.
You actually don't. He could have blown, theoretically speaking, to set the scene, he could have been blowing the whistle somewhat routinely, and only when he was ready did he actually hit the intercom button.
I think you have to argue that the intercom must have been open the entire time from the moment she pressed the button the first time. Because, again, the sister had a very clear view, right?
Oh, yeah.
If the sister then sees a man stand up, there's a body still lying there, saunter over to the intercom, I don't care how dotty you are, I don't think you can believe that that's your sister's ghost doing that.
See, I think that what they're trying to say with that scene, because at the very end of the scene, you see the Dottie sister kind of close her blinds, whatever, because it's actually only lace. I think when they show her seeing the body getting up, it's implied that she was so overcome with grief, I guess.
But what grief? At that point, there's no way she could have known the sister was dead.
Exactly.
Which also didn't make any sense. And then if he is doing the whistle or the intercom at the time and the gate starts to close, there's no way the guards didn't see a shadowy figure running away by the time the gate starts to close.
That's still not my biggest issue with this episode.
No,
I'm there with you. All that doesn't not track.
But it's one of the issues of the episode is that the timings always seem so off and so odd because
he had time to train the dog to push the button. He's not. He's the family's lawyer. Why would the lawyer be there enough to actually know?
And you're given the indication that he is not there very often because he says to both, unless it's the family who don't live at the mansion. Maybe I got this the wrong way because when he turns up for the reading, whatever it is, he says to both the sister and the niece, I think it is, sorry to see you in such see you again under such dire circumstances or whatever, right? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why he would have been spending time with the dog. Enough time on his own to train the dog to press what I'm assuming was a fake button.
Yeah.
Which just happened to look like... I'm assuming he must have trained it to press, although, again, because there's 3 buttons on that gate panel, right? How does the dog know which one to press?
Well, so theoretically speaking, if he was using a fake setup, first he would actually have to know what the office looks like. And so if the lawyer already knows what the office looks like, you would actually go ahead and set up all of the buttons and only reward the dog when it hits the leftmost.
To refute, I guess you could say when there's only one button, it is always the leftmost. But when Jessica Fletcher does it, there's only one button.
Yes, that does absolutely produce a problem. Well, and also... Did he know that the dog was going to have to stand in the guard's chair?
He must have done, right? He must have done, because if the dog's on the floor, I mean, I guess you have to hope the guard always leaves his chair in the same place, which is just within dog's reach of the button. Because, yeah, the dog getting on the chair to hit the button isn't that hard to believe. The fact that you would rely on that, because, bear in mind, if the sister hadn't been murdered, she's going to tell everybody everything.
Yep.
Right? Which I guess at that point, the lawyer hasn't technically done anything wrong. He didn't give the pill to the horse. And I guess he could have argued his way that, actually, no, I never said to her that the money was coming to them.
He'd have to fight pretty hard to not be an accessory.
Oh, yeah, he might get an accessory, but...
and theoretically, the dog could have been trained to move the chair as well, but that even speaks more to how much time would this guy have had with the dog? How much time
did this guy have with the dog? And then there was a whole bit about the... again, I don't know why the lawyer broke down when he did at the end.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so the dog has gone to him looking for a treat. So what? It doesn't prove a goddamn thing. The bicycle clip hasn't proven a goddamn thing.
No.
The tire tracks and the fact that he said he had to change his tire and that's why he was late, but he hasn't changed his tire clearly. That was a compelling start of evidence for the police to pick up on. I understand that.
I would argue that if that is the signal, and someone had to train the dog.
Yes.
And the
lawyer trained the dog.
Right. So, but the dog going to him afterwards for the treat,
yes,
is how you do all of that training. If you're a trainer, that is the
norm. Yes, but that is circumstantial evidence. A decent lawyer is going to argue his way out of that. No problem.
Why did the
dog come to you? I had some sausages in my pocket.
Why didn't he come to you earlier in the meeting? Let's now take the sausages out of your pocket and redo the experiment. Because you could redo it. Because this wasn't even a trial, per se.
No, this was a coroner's inquest.
Right, which I still don't understand what the hell a coroner's inquest is. I've never heard that term.
It's where a coroner decides if you died of natural causes.
Okay. But I
this was for the old man. This wasn't for Trish. This was for the old man. It was the old man's inquest.
Yeah, and it was still open, and they were all hoping to actually get it wrapped up and done to make everyone go away.
He just fell off a spooked horse, yeah.
So, he broke down then to me because, first he thought, no, because he's an attorney, he would know.
This is the problem. He's an attorney. Now, I get that he's a small country bumpkin or wherever they're meant to be attorney, and I'm assuming clearly normally deals with family law. Wills and such. So it wouldn't be your strongest character. But the fact that he would have known his best defense was to stay completely silent.
Correct.
And admit nothing.
Correct.
Right?
But I do think in court, they could have redone that exact experiment and proven
they could.
that the dog knew the dog knew who trained him to do this.
They could, but then someone's going to argue that no, it's just coincidence and you got to get the jury to decide one way or the other, right?
Well, that's easy. You have it as a video deposition and have the dog do it multiple times.
It doesn't
keep
matter.
Repositioning the guy, and
you'd
have to be really stupid about dogs to not think that was.
You'd have to prove that the dog wouldn't go to anybody else.
Right.
Right.
That's not that hard to prove with some form of video deposition.
It is because
you can have lots of different people in the room.
But you'd have to convince them around. You would have to convince a judge first of all to put the suspected murderer in a room with other people with a dog for a test, which is on the face of it completely stupid, and that most juries wouldn't accept. Right? Because he's going to say, "No, I'm not going to do that." And he would have to be forced to do it. He would have to be forced to do it by a lawyer. By a judge. I
know dogs well enough that there is no ifs, ands, or buts on that being a. Kids don't tend to lie. Dogs don't tend to lie.
What if I've trained the dog to go to him after he's pressed the button and pretend to ask for a treat?
And that is where you could have that argument. But you would have to ask, when did that happen? How did you already know what the lawyer's signal was? How much time did you have to try and pull this off?
Well, there would have been the lawyer would have had no signal because the lawyer is innocent. He's just been framed by a dog.
But the lawyer's never been there to be the one that the dog's trained to go to.
You could just have a picture of him. You could have just trained the dog to go to anybody but you.
Well,
which again would have been part of the test if you did it again. But again, that lawyer would never have done that willingly.
No, he did break down too soon, but I do think that was very compelling evidence that, at least in my mind, if I was on the jury, would.
I think they had a good case on this one. I just don't think he should have broken down and confessed. I think he lied about the car and the tire. That's suspicious, right? He did have the stain on his trousers where he could have ridden a bike. Right, without a bike, whatever it was, to protect his trousers. Right, yes, the evidence is there and is starting to get there, but he, as a lawyer, would not have broken down.
Yeah, because everyone knows. I mean, I would assume him being a lawyer would know that the most important thing, for basically in an American murder case, is the confession of the killer and trying to get that.
Yeah. But no, I just thought he broke down too early. I thought again, as they were dictating how the dog did it, didn't make sense with what we saw and how the gate closed. I don't understand. I mean, I know it was dark at the time and the sister wouldn't have had like a great view, but when Jessica Fletcher looks out the window, we see it is a great view. Right. She's not the drunk sister. If it's the drunk sister who's the witness and can't see properly down to the gate, I would buy that more.
Or is stumbling, so she's not getting a consistent, clear look.
Or if the Dottie sister, it had been, she has to wear glasses.
Yeah,
right. I would have accepted that as well. But the fact that just because she's Dottie, I don't think was enough reason for her to confuse a 5'3" woman to a 6' man getting up. Right?
I was going to say you wouldn't actually know that based on the distance, but she's had that view for a long time, which also does actually imply that she does live there, which means the lawyer hasn't been there that often.
That is true. That is true. Yes, this is true.
She would always have frame of reference because the car's there. You could see, from a distance, just someone walking around. It's going to be hard to peg one person or another as taller without frames of reference against each other. But you have a perfect frame of reference of the car itself and the gate itself.
Yes, and the body on the floor.
That too.
So this episode definitely had problems, but as an episode, here's what I liked about it. It had a sense of humor.
Yes.
Going through it, which I very much appreciated. It always has convenience. The fact that there's the one guy in the sheriff's department who loves Jessica Fletcher for some reason and will help out with all this bullshit. I don't understand. The actual sheriff didn't like her that much, which was, fair enough. Jessica Fletcher does make leaps that nobody else would. Which I thought was interesting. But I don't think they were particularly out there. And I picked up it was the lawyer from when they did the phone call with the brokers, and I thought, okay, the lawyer did this because he needs the money. That's when I decided. And then when they did the very odd British people drinking tea to stay calm, and he comes in with the awkward oil stains, I was like, yeah, okay, this is confirmed. It's definitely him. There's no one else it makes sense to be, because he has to have killed Trish because Trish poisoned the horse. I think Trish was the name of the drunken sister. Yeah. So, like, there's a logicality to the case that makes a lot of sense. The Spencer, Mr. Potts, red herring was, again, they are not good at red herrings. They are not good at the misdirect.
I'll give them for that this is an early season.
Yes, and it's one of the better misdirects they've done. But again, how quickly did they give up on it?
Oh, almost immediately.
You know, she goes down, she steals the fake bandage, which, you know, would have been one thing, but then she's caught by Spencer. So, because at that time you have no idea Spencer is involved in that. And I can't see how Jessica Fletcher would know Spencer was involved in this little ploy with Potts. But the fact that he's conveniently there and then they hold her at gunpoint.
Yeah.
And then explain why he did it was kind of like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
This is just lazy.
Well, and that he took the gun from the country bumpkin, I'm sorry. That seemed overly. You don't execute someone that quickly, that easily. Just
dear. No, unless the country bumpkin has done it before, but that's a different Murder, She Wrote episode.
Exactly,
because he already knew where he was going to bury her. So,
good point.
He'd given it some thought. Maybe he's done it before. But no, coming off that, what I liked about this episode is that it had fun. It was an enjoyable episode to watch, even though it was stupid. The case was okay. And Jessica Fletcher wasn't the vapid character she was in the last one.
Right.
She wasn't quite nosy bitch, which I think is where she's best at. But she wasn't passenger mode, which she seemed to be in the last one.
Yeah.
And
she's not quite nosy bitch, but that is definitely a
her being a nosy bitch. And I don't know why they don't just go with this instead of having these convenient setups for her. Right? Like, she wants to investigate the murder because it's happened around her. Of course she does. Right? For many reasons. One, to get story ideas. Right? You know she's going to be writing about these with names changed. And two, she's that kind of person. She has a mind that likes to solve puzzles. But then there seems to be this other part of her. Maybe her husband tried to beat it out of her. I don't know. Or, I don't mean physically. But there does seem to be this other part of her where she will give up, like you mentioned before with the horse being drugged. Like, she just accepted that straight away.
Exactly.
No questions asked. And it did seem odd. Yes, it made more sense for the cousin to be questioning it, but I think it would have made more sense for them both to be questioning it.
Yeah, because actually they could have had her actually ask the cousin, tell me what you think would happen with drugs with a horse.
Exactly.
Rather than just...
rather than just going, well, that's the science.
I will say, from the pilot to this, we've now watched 5 total episodes.
Yeah.
4 have involved a family member of Jessica. Yes. So,
and honestly, technically, I know the one at sea didn't, but the reason Jessica gets involved is pretty much the same, and is that she's developed an automatic friendship with some strange guy who turned up at her house. So you could argue that the reason she's got involved in all of them is exactly the same.
It's because she already had a personal connection.
Because she already had a personal connection to the case, which is odd. But again, you know, she's a grandma from Cabot Cove. there has to be a reason for her to be getting involved in these things, right? But
I think it's writing yourself into a corner if you demand that she have this level of attachment to every case.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, it can't always be family members, but they're just going to go down to friends, work acquaintances. Like, will they do an episode where she's just standing in the bank and there's a murder and it's all completely random? I don't know.
I think you're right that they're going to lean into her being quote unquote nosy and wanting to solve puzzles and realizing that the greatest puzzle is solving murders. It's what the greatest sport is, hunting men. Well, this is the greatest puzzle.
Yeah, because you can understand whenever a murder happens in Cabot Cove, she doesn't need to have a direct connection to it, right? Because she's there, and of course she's going to get involved in one that happened in her hometown. Of course she is, because that's the kind of person she is, right? Makes sense. But the more they keep on making her be at different places and there just happens to be a murder, right? One, the more it looks like she is the murderer. And whenever she's doing these big speeches and suddenly someone confesses, it's her hypnotizing them, telling them how she did it, but then making sure they are the ones who say they did it that way. Right? That's not what they're going for. They weren't that clever. But the more that it's always constant breakdown crying, I confess, the less believable all of these seem to appear as just random murders. And the more it feels like, yeah, Jessica Fletcher's just got some kind of serial killer itch.
Do you think a late 1980s person, though, would ever suspect that? Right? Who's watching a weekly serialized...
No, but I mean, maybe, but like you could have lent into that. Like Murder, She Wrote, where you're actually trying to subtly suggest she is the murderer and she's some kind of witch, would be fantastic. It's like Dexter, but more subtle.
Like that.
Oh no, probably not. Probably not. Right? She just happens to get into trouble. Or be, next to somebody who's murdered and she just happens to solve the case. I think we don't see her as evil or involved in any way. But the more she has cousins and nieces and nephews and brothers and sisters and people who just happen to invite her to a place at the exact time that a murder happens, the less believable it is that she just happens to be there when a murder happens. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
It keeps getting weaker and weaker.
Yes. And we're only in season 1. And already it seems like, okay, we're suspending disbelief. We just have to get her to the place where a murder happens this week. And then she's going to move on to the next one. We get it's a narrative structure. But yes, it's not the best narrative structure for a week-to-week murder series, in my opinion. But having said that, I do believe this has been the best episode so far. And I honestly don't think it's got a lot of competition. The only one I would marginally put up there is the one with the daughters on the boat.
Are we also excluding the pilot?
No, I'm including the pilot.
I'd say both of those actually felt a bit better to me. Not by much, but...
The pilot, I think, is worse because it wasted more time than this one did. Okay, they had to do a lot of... But again, I don't think they had to do
It has a much better story, though.
Does it?
I think so. I think it was more fun for the audience. I think it was better connected. The end result isn't all that great, but the whole episode through up until... And how quickly did they close it out at the very end?
Yes.
Very rapidly. So
very rapidly.
The rest of the episode, it was kind of pleasant and kind of fun. This one, and maybe it's because I wouldn't even say I'm an animal lover, but I feel like I guess I know far better than most about animals, maybe?
Yeah.
Because so much of this episode screamed wrong for everything involving the animals and Jessica or everyone not asking so much more.
I mean, everything about this episode just screamed wrong when you get to the actual case. But what I liked about it, and what the first one to me didn't have, it had these odd bits of humor, but they weren't really well connected. To me, this episode goes that they're hopefully going to stay a bit lighter. The pacing of this episode was, I think, better than, again, we'll exclude the pilot for pacing, because obviously they had an hour and a half and he's only got 45 minutes.
Right.
But I think the pacing of this episode felt better.
It's definitely better than the daughters on the boat, because that one does take a long time of her chatting with him.
Yes,
getting her personal connection set up.
There's a large setup which isn't really then paid off in any meaningful way, other than to be this is why she got involved in this one. And then as for the Abomination last week, I have honestly scrubbed it mostly from my mind.
Yeah, I don't remember it.
There was not a lot of pacing here, but the pacing I thought here was good. It's nice to think that, they went to the dog did it, right? The dog didn't do it. But I'm glad that they are willing to go to such kind of ludicrous stories, because I think you're going to need them every so often. If every episode is like this, it's going to be awful, right? But if there are some episodes where they're willing to go to the more stupid aspect, it's an enjoyable watch, or at least it is for me.
I'm okay with the stupid. I just didn't. I don't know. It might just be just the animal part, because accusing an animal of the murder, I think is a great plot development. It's a great way to pivot. I just don't think that this was a good example of that.
No, I don't think it was at all. And the whole horse thing didn't make sense either. But then it wasn't meant to, I guess, is the other thing, because it was never the story. But
but it feels like it didn't make sense, and not that many people cared that it didn't make sense.
Well, I think you would have to ask who would have cared, right? Because the sheriff wouldn't, because he just wants the case done. He doesn't want a murder inquiry. An accident is an accident. Done. The kids aren't going to care because they just want the money. So, okay, why am I going to question the horse thing? And then his friend did question it. The cousin questioned it, and Jessica Fletcher questioned it. So who really is left to question?
I don't think Jessica questioned it nearly enough.
No, she didn't question it enough, but she did question it at the time. And then there was that weird thing with the science, and then trying to make the cousin be the reason why she keeps going on into the case. It was handled badly, but she does question it at the time. And then we don't see a lot of the friend.
No,
really.
The one who gets the shotgun.
And then we see him he also gets the dog at the end.
Yes.
And it turns out he owns some kind of dog sanctuary, now with a millionaire stud.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was just a nice little joke to end the series, to end the episode on.
I didn't like it, though. Maybe I was just a sourpuss on this whole fucking episode.
It sounds like it. It sounds like you were, honestly. You just had...
I think it annoyed me enough that there wasn't enough. This is not how a horse behaves. This is not how a dog behaves. That I guess it suspended someone's disbelief.
I understand that, and because it didn't make any sense. And because the horse was never spooked. I don't know if the horse was ever meant to have been spooked, or just the drug just suddenly hit, and that's what made him go crazy. But then, how do you time that so well?
Well, and I guess I even had issues with how she initially tried to feed the pill to the horse. So I guess literally from the outset, I was like, what the fuck is this? Do they not know how dogs work? Or horses work? Do they know how dogs work?
No, but you have to show the pill to the camera.
I think that they could have shown it accurately without it being, because you could have it be something in her hand that's food, and then she pours something onto it to be the poison. You can make it obvious that the horse is being drugged in a way that is closer to...
Just show her putting the pill in an apple and then giving the apple to the horse.
I even think a pill's a little far.
Right. I mean, horses will eat pills, especially if they are used to eating from the hand. But yes, you definitely could have just put, some horse treats or whatever, sugar cubes. They love sugar cubes. In the hand like that. Yes, you're right. There are better ways of doing it, but I think that's, to me, because I enjoyed this episode and I thought, okay, it's funny. It doesn't really make sense, but there are things they can improve. The difference from watching the last episode is that there was nothing good about the last episode we watched, right? And so there was nothing.
No redeeming feature.
Yeah, no redeeming features and nothing to hope for. But then I watched this episode coming off of that one. I mean, I even laughed a couple of times at how stupid it was getting. But yes, the cases need to get better. Yes, I hope they try to justify why she's there a little bit better, but I know they won't. But whereas whereas this one, I think, just had very specific things that have riled you up. Right? And you're like, fuck it. No, you're fucking idiots. And I fucking hate this episode because of this. Like, the last episode was just bad. This one, I think you just haven't enjoyed.
Yeah, it's sounding like it. It's sounding like it. But I got a particular bone stuck in my craw and wasn't willing to let that go.
Yes, you really have. Like, that's not how you feed a pill to a horse. And I think that from that moment, you're like, this is a stupid episode.
It was also the whole parade of people. Like, when his horse runs off, they have a parade of people run their horses in front of the camera, kind of stop, and then kind of take off again. The whole thing is that whole scene. Why are we having everyone stop? Why are the horses being told to stop? Or are they stopped? None of that followed either. So
no, it didn't.
I also didn't see this episode.
I also didn't see a single fox. So I don't know what the fuck they were hunting. All right.
And at that point, I think he's rich enough that they just do have the fox that they already own and bred and have released. Rather, they're not going fox hunting.
No, there probably is
a pet fox.
There probably is a slightly lame fat fox that they can chase, so they know they can catch it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and that would have also made sense.
You're not going to show that on TV because then everyone there is a bad guy.
I mean, they're rich.
They do seem to have a problem because, again, how many episodes have been about rich fuckers?
Also that, yes. And about fathers specifically, and kids not liking their fathers.
Yeah. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the next episode brings. It's been a mixed bag so far. Obviously, if there's any more about horses, they have to get it 100% right.
Animals, not just horses.
Well, there are some animals you may not know how they eat. Like, if they tried to feed that tablet to an octopus, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. I don't know how an octopus eats a tablet.
Actually, in that, I think you, again, underestimate me.
Again, how Denton would then ride the octopus to hunt foxes, I don't know. But
that's the beginning of a hentai.
Anime. If it's a hentai, they're not hunting that horse. But anyway, this episode gave me hope. Right. I'm not going to say it's good. I do believe it is the best one so far.
It is a world away from last week, which is
a world away from last week. The one with the people on the boat, it was a good episode. Probably a better mystery, but hampered by why the thing started in the first place.
Right. And taking so much time to even get going.
Yes. And then the Sherlock Holmes one, you're right, it was probably the better mystery, but there was a lot of missteps. The whole scene on the bus, the taxi driver becoming your best friend, being mugged. Like, there was a lot of things in the pilot that just didn't make a lot of sense. Whereas this one, even if the mystery wasn't particularly good, even if when they explained it in the coroner's inquest later on, it didn't really seem to match up with what we've been told before, I don't believe there was a lot of wasted time in this episode. But what I want to see them get better at is being able to tell more story in a shorter amount of time.
Yes.
Because even though I don't think they wasted time on this one, like they had to set up the family and they had to set up the lawyer and all this kind of stuff. Like I think every scene did have a purpose. I just think they could have tried to squeeze a little bit more out. And they have to get better at the red herring. They have to get better at the misdirect. Unless the whole point is that they want everybody to have solved the case by the end. So people can have that satisfaction, which may be what they were going for. I don't know. It may have been a conscious decision on their part to not have good red herrings. I don't know. But what we do know is that Nightbringer did not like this episode.
Oh.
Because it had a horse and a dog in it.
I'm starting to wonder if I actually need to get a webcam, just because I don't always laugh that audibly, but yeah, I am. This episode was... I'm going to say it's somewhere between I didn't like it, the animals didn't line up with what I already know, and I was a sourpuss.
I think there's a lot of sourpuss involved. A lot of, like, the animals didn't line up with what I know either, but I managed to let go of that.
I think I also have issues with that specifically because it's such a common misinformation thing that people are so unwilling to question if what we think we know about animals is even remotely close to what's actually true.
Yes.
And how many city folk are just terrified of everything in the woods without any knowledge of it? How many country folk are terrified of the crocodiles or what have you in the New York City and the New York rats? Besides those on Wall Street, none of it's actually that interesting. None of those rats, besides Wall Street, are that dangerous.
Damn. Yeah, it's the same as anything, right? They are dangerous, but only if you get caught by them in certain situations, right?
Right.
But that's the same as any human you meet, right?
I guess I'm just far more annoyed with bad information when it comes to animals.
But yes, right. Let's stop talking about the episode because this has turned into probably the longest one we've ever done. I had an idea for when we get to the end of season 1. Right, do a special episode. Kind of so Trenton made an idea of we should rank the episodes. In one of the comments he put down. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that particularly. But I do like the idea of when we get to the end, if we put them in brackets against each other.
Yes.
And then do a discussion, you and I, going through and then deciding which ones pass through on the bracket. And then we have a best episode of season 1.
Yes. I think we could do that for every season and at the end of each season say, okay, where did this season rank among the others? That way we don't have to look too far back, but can also...
Disagree. So okay. I think we should do it for each season. And then when we get to the end, in the year 2029, which I think is how long it would take us if we did this weekly. My maths may be off. We do another final special where we do the best episode of all time.
Part of me feels like that's going to be way too hard to remember.
Well, no, because you think about it. So we do it for every season. So every season we will have decided at the season time what the best episode was. We would then at the end of season 9, we would have to rewatch those 9 episodes or whatever it is. I can't remember how many seasons there are. And then decide out of those which one is the best episode of Murder, She Wrote.
This comes out in 2029. How long do you think the episodes will be at that point in time? I'm thinking 3.5 hours.
Oh, you mean our episodes?
Yes.
They're either going to be 3.5 episodes, or we've got it down to such a cookie cutter chocolate factory that they're just like bang on an hour or bang on 45 minutes.
I thought you were going to say like 15. I was going, no, I will always ramble more than that.
It's always going to be like a minimum of an hour is what I'm going for. Would I like a little bit more structure? Yes, but I'm not going to push for it.
I've had a few ideas as well in that regard. So I'm thinking, I'll talk about that later.
But yes, I think that would be fun to do at the end of every season. to kind of do that ladder thing and say this was the best episode of season 1. Clearly, it's not going to be this one, even though I think it's a very good contender so far. And then
this is going to be like jury selection, where you get to strike one, and then I strike this one.
I mean, it'll be interesting because I guess we'll have to do a random bracket, right? So not like episode 1 versus episode 2. We would have to randomize it. So it'd be interesting. What would be interesting if it ends up last week's episode wins just because of what it's put up against?
See, that's actually my concern. is again, while I was a sourpuss on this episode, I don't. I hope that last week's is a standout failure.
Oh, so do I. I hope this is an indication of things to come and not an outlier.
I guess maybe I need to rewatch this episode and then rewatch last week's and be grateful.
Yeah. 100%. Like, coming off of last week's episode, this was a breath of fresh air. Like I said, it seemed funny. It had a little bit of cleverness, even though I don't think it paid off very well. And had some very good guest stars in this one. Yes. I thought as well, like, who really played their parts well. I really hope in the next episode we go back to Cabot Cove. I really, really want a couple of episodes where she's back home.
Yeah,
I want to see the sheriff again.
Her being in Cabot Cove, and even if something happens a couple of counties over, but it being, I don't think I've met anyone who goes around to see their family as often as Jessica obviously is thus far in this show.
No.
I don't have that much family and friends to go visit all across the nation.
No, and this is the thing. It has all been family so far, not friends.
Exactly.
Although you would argue she probably wouldn't have that many friends outside of Cabot Cove based on the life she had before writing the books. But anyway, that's a discussion for another day. Because, yes, this has been an hour and a half, right?
That sounds like a skill issue.
We've gone over an hour and a half.
You didn't convince me it was a good episode.
So, you also didn't convince me it was a bad episode. So.
Fair.
They imprisoned a dog. How can you not think that's a good episode?
That was fun. And her, what was it? She was monologuing. Because when they did arrest the cousin, saying it was the cousin, because the cousin mentioned something about training.
Yeah.
The monologuing to the dog who's asleep on a prison bed with his head on the metal. It was that was
bars. Yeah, that was hilarious. I loved it. But yes, we should stop. But yeah, let me know if you think the bracket idea is a good idea. I'd like to do it. I think it would be an interesting way of then looking back at the end on things we've clearly forgotten.
Are you asking me? Because I'm already down for it. I thought I.
And then, I think all that's left to then do is say goodbye. Say goodbye, Nightbringer.
Horses.
He said something about horses.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I sighed, and then horses.
Okay. And then, goodbye, everybody, and we will see you in the next one. Bye for now.